Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Adam Penna. I'm here to continue the conversation in 3D printing and additive manufacturing. And today I'm happy to have Wilbert Pierce with me. Wilbert, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I know you're out there in Baltimore, Maryland, and we talked a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and obviously I love your background there. There's a lot of great things in your office. Look at those beautiful, a lot of those are 3D prints, correct? Are they all 3D prints, or are we seeing something as far?
Except for this guy.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I mean, that's an awesome, I know you've got an amazing design background, and recently over the last 3 years or so, you've been applying it to the medical field, but you've had your own design agency for over 12 years, and you're really getting into design for additive manufacturing and the power of that, and you obviously have a passion for it, so I was very happy to talk a little bit and touch base with you today.
Yeah, as we mentioned when we talked last, it was when I learned how to 3D model, it was one thing, but when I discovered that there were machines that could take the things that I modeled and make them real, I was completely enamored. And
I
got started long before like they were commercially viable for home consumers. But the second I got a chance, I started printing stuff and I never stopped.
Yeah, I know you have a big scanning background also, the ability from your art and background experience to actually scan something and turn it into 3D. A lot of people don't realize that initial step when they're looking into what's going in the 3D printer. Some people don't have to scan things, so that's it is what it is. But it's a big part of reverse engineering and inspection and being able to pull data from everywhere. So, talk a little bit about that. What was your scan background in design, and what sort of scanners do you use, or do you have one in your home office, or how has that gone over the years for you?
It's evolved a little bit, both my understanding of reverse engineering and just the practical applications.
Yeah.
Like coming from design, I would say I was more apt to designing things than I was cleaning scans. But
yeah,
carried over was the thought of the final result. And in art school, it's all about process. You mix this with this, and that gives you something about the consistency of, and then you paint with that. And it's very process heavy, but I don't want to say that's not intuitive to my nature as a creative, but I started working in areas where it's like the end result was the biggest part. So when I started 3D modeling, you're making parts, you're running simulations, you're testing them. But then I got an illustration, and like those guys didn't really care what I was doing in 3D. They just needed a picture. So, and then I tell people when I'm teaching like digital sculpting, like you have to have design intent. You have to know exactly what you're going to use the thing for to optimize your time. Because like I'm not going to spend 40 minutes, say I'm in ZBrush, I'm doing a full character, if I'm only going to render it from 3/4 of an angle. Like what am I doing? Why am I sculpting this guy's back? No one's ever going to see the back. No one's ever going to ask me to, like, it's not a model for print, it's just for illustration. Okay, we're going to focus on the image that we need at hand.
Right. That's a large part of it, because you don't know unless you're going into a design, like you're saying, you have to know the intent for what that actual product is or that piece is. And then you can actually be functional with your design instead of over taking too much time doing things you don't need to, basically. So I understand that.
Why are you modeling the threads on a screw when all you
yeah,
very little sense.
Yeah, but it's a large part of it. And I know your background is great. I mean, I was in Orlando for a large part of my life, and I know you went to school there at Full Sail, but you also, go back to the long-term school, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. So, I mean, you've had a lot of training and details and working out from an artistic side and also from an engineering side. And I like the marriage of those two. That's a lot of my background also. So talk a little bit about that and going through school and the kind of things you saw that gravitated you inside of what was going on.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not particularly shy about talking about it. I definitely grew up poor. Like, we were homeless, but definitely like bills didn't really meet. Like your ends didn't meet. They just got close enough to wave kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I had a talent. And when you have a talent for something, that's your designation in life now. So like I like to draw. My cousin taught me how to draw, taught me how to break down things into shapes.
Nice.
And like I tell my kids now, I call it the construction of life. Like if you look, everything is broken down into some sort of shapes that you can identify and recognize. And so like my cousin taught me all these, and he didn't really know what it was himself. He just knew that if I draw a circle and I draw 2 more circles, I got Pikachu. So he taught me how to do that, and I carried that on, so that I became the artist in the family.
Nice. Was it mostly pencil drawing? Because I spent a lot of time doing that in my youth also.
Pencils, colored pencils. I've gotten many a really shitty rose art coloring set. Every
Yeah.
birthday, every Christmas, there's at least one 32 pack of markers that don't really actually color.
Yeah.
Crayon like wax, but I took that through high school, and you know, you get to high school and you can draw, so girls like you, and you're happy about that. And eventually, someone in high school goes, "Well, what are you going to do with your life?" And the only thing you have in your head is, "I'm going to be an artist." Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of, I see a lot of beautiful printers in the background too. What's the largest size you have there to do something?
let's see, in the house.
Yeah.
Form 3. He's the biggest in the house. Well, the biggest SLA in the house. Upstairs in my other workshop where I'm trying to repair stuff, I have my Ender 6, and he's a nice little cube, but he's mostly for like the Iron Man stuff, larger parts, less detail.
Yeah, for people that can't see the video or listening, though, he has a beautiful working lab there with some nice machines in the background and a lot of wonderful. It looks like a lot of Iron Man, different versions of masks there on the wall. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Those are all SLA, is that correct?
No, these guys are all. Oh, I'm sorry. These are all FDM.
They are FDM. Okay.
It's injection molded.
Nice. Yeah, it looks fun, man. There's a lot of great looking stuff there. You have fun with that? Have you actually put together a full suit yet?
I put together one suit when I first started, and it was when I got started, the first thing I did was I learned how to model Iron Man. When it just came out, and it was like, oh, I was so enamored with the concept, and he was already like one of my favorite heroes before he got popular. Because if you look back, Iron Man was not a popular character in the comics. It was just kind of like, he was supposed to be like this warmongering kind of guy that had a change of heart. He was not supposed to be likable, but America, we liked him.
Yep.
And then like I tell people, like between the movie and the actor, like it was like this symbiotic relationship. They saved each other because Marvel didn't know what it was doing. Robert Downey Jr. was in and out of rehab.
He didn't know what he was doing either. Yeah.
We both looked at each other and thought, you know what? If this works, it works. And 10 years later, we got what? Have we hit 20 movies?
My gosh, yeah. I don't know. It's been so many movies with the Marvel series and all that. There's been a lot of them with him. Yeah, but it's amazing to see that, right? I mean, I know what you mean. I grew up on those characters. Also, my uncle was a big magazine collector, and he had all those old comics in the basement. And so I used to rummage through a lot of them. Oops, and and check out a lot of things. I was really interested back then. That was something that pulled my attention. Of course, Spider-Man pulls everyone's attention, but and he had, I'm going off on a tangent here, but he had one of the old albums, that you opened up, and on the inside it had the Spider-Man story on both sides of the double album, and the albums actually told the story when you put them on the record player. So it was really neat. Those were some of the first impressions I have. But to go back to Iron Man, he had a lot of the original Iron Man comics, and that was my first place seeing it. But what drew my attention to Iron Man at the time was, of course, the song, by Black Sabbath. That was around, I am Iron Man. And so I was like, as a kid, I was looking at these Iron Man. I was like, what is this with the music and everything? But it wasn't. But that was my introduction to Iron Man at the time. And here we are. Yeah.
And it was about the same time that I was learning how to model and play the guitar. And
Cool.
the only part of that song I ever learned how to play is that opening. Actually got the chords for the rest, but I always felt so accomplished when I could like hit that nice little
Yeah.
For the day, I mastered it. We're done.
That's it. That's a good feeling. It's a powerful feeling when you can get down Iron Man on guitar, because you're like, I am Iron Man. It's awesome. Yeah, well, neat. No, to back on everything that was going on, I guess we were digressing there from Iron Man, but so those are some really beautiful prints you have there, and I know that it was a large part of design thinking. You're talking about how you started out building the first one, and then you were talking about the suit.
Oh yeah, hilariously enough, like my Iron Man and my design and 3D printing they all kind of like intersected at the same point. It's like right after first year of college, I went to art school because I don't know. I wanted to be an artist. I guess you go to art school. So I applied. I got into Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art. One of the best stretches of experience, I guess, in my budding adult life. like everyone else came with the expectation, like they knew what, you know, the whole this art thing was, and I just came knowing that I like to draw, and it was the first time in my life that I was like in this amalgamation of creatives that like were about their shit. Like they like some of these kids came from art high schools, which I didn't know you could choose the art school you went to. I just went where my parents told me because it was up the street.
Yep.
These kids came from art programs, and they're like, "Oh, you're from Maryland? You went to Carver?" And I'm like, what's a Carver?" I and like so like it very quickly dawned on people that I was like, this guy is just kind of, how did he get in here?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Raw talent, raw talent. Yeah.
and at some of these, you know, some of my peers, they were doing like wall size, like photorealistic paintings, like drawing, and I was like if I want to one keep up with the rest of my peers and figure out what's going on, I got to really like. So I got completely engrossed. Like it was all traditional fine art study though. So we did sculpting, printmaking, drafting. There were 2 computers in the building in the library, and none of them had 3D software.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't even a thought to me at the time that I could do anything on the computer. And I would come back home with these frustrations of like, man, like all these kids are super good, and I gotta catch up. My roommate's just like, but you're good at other things, man. Like I've watched you play video games, and like you have an interest in movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, but like, how does that translate to an art career? And he looks at me and he goes, you ever thought about being a concept artist, a modeler? And I'm like, there are other job paths within the art subsect. And he's like, yeah, man. So he takes me to his room, and like I had just got into computers, and I remember at the time being so impressed that he had a 22-inch monitor. I'm like, oh, this is the biggest computer of my life. And he sits me down. He's like, okay, look, this is 3D Studio Max. I'm gonna sign you up for Max forums. Like this is way before Facebook. I guess it was about the same time. And so he gets me on the forums, and like he's like, look, just make stuff. And when you have a problem, post it, and then people will help you. And I'm like, this is a crazy idea. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm learning how to like model, and he's like, the best way to learn is to do projects you're interested in. And he's like, so whatever you do, don't get into the trap of like deciding to like just do things for work, because there's no fulfillment. But when you sprinkle in something you enjoy every so often, you kind of, it builds your love for the thing you're doing. So it's like I was already engrossed. I was like, cool, what can I model? Iron Man. Iron Man came out. It was these very clean engineered shapes. I was like, that's model that no problem, especially with a turbo smooth modifier. Let's go. And then I realized it was not that simple. And I'm like, so I'm in the Max forums. I'm like, hey guys, how do you do this? What about intersecting parts? Do I have to make everything made up? Can they just like stick into each other? Will anyone notice? Guys are like, yeah, you can intersect stuff for the renders, but that's not going to work out if you don't want to print this. And I was like, what do you mean print it? This is a thing on the computer. And guys are like, they're like sending me videos of like, you know, there's like CNC machines and like other forms of like manufacturing that like you can send these files off to, and they'll give you the thing you made. And I'm like, no, that's not real. No one, they don't make replicators. I've seen Star Trek. You're lying. And lo and behold, after that, he kind of showed me ZBrush, and coming from fine art sculpture to like digital sculpture, it was like no brainer. I was like, okay. Immediately pulled into that. It became one of the big workhorses for me. And I started to see like in the 3D sculpting community, like collectibles companies were like, hey, we're moving from people doing clay maquettes to just doing it on the computer, and we'll get them printed. And I'm like, there's that word again, printing. People are printing things. Like, what do they mean, printing? And I would get these pictures. And there was one big company at the time. It was like everyone's go-to, and they were called Ownage. They might still be around, but anybody that was working at a certain level would get stuff printed at Ownage. And that was like either they had the first big commercial SLA machine, or they were just on top of it early. But like the queue was months. Like if you wanted to get something printed, you had to send it out, and then they would get back to you eventually. Like you didn't, it was the first time in my adult life where I'm like, I have money and I want a thing, I can't get it. The second time was a PS5. But
that was recent, huh? A little craziness.
On Black Friday with the money, and I'm like, I just want this thing. Usually I don't have the money and the thing is out, but now the thing is out and I have the money. It's a cruel joke.
It is. It happens to us all.
And these guys at Ownage would like print, and they had I never looked into what machines they had. I don't even think they have a website. I don't know how you contact the secret underground 3D printing society, but the resin prints were amazing, and they started using those for like masters and casting and collectibles, and from there I was just like, okay, so the thing on the computer gets printed out in a physical form. Why is no one talking about this? Why is this not more of a huge thing in the world? You know, the older I get, the more I move into like this education side, where it's like,
Yep.
the only boundary that people have is what they know is available. And like, I live in Baltimore City right now, and I'm like, why don't more schools have 3D printers? And people are like, oh, you know, kids aren't interested in 3D printing. And I'm like, show a kid a 3D printer? My kids aren't interested because we have them in the house. It's commonplace for them. But I promise you, let me set up a 3D printer on the corner and just print stuff. Like, people are going to ask questions. What's that? How does it work? And then, but now that they have an understanding for the possibility, they can take that.
Yeah.
Like, moving in with my wife, she knew about stuff, the kind of stuff that I did. Like, she knew I made stuff on the computer, and it somehow became physical. Like, someone would send me a copy of a toy or something. But she never really put too much thought into it until like our kids, we moved into a new house and they broke all the oven knobs off.
Oh, hey, here coming. This is awesome. Yeah.
We looked it up on the computer and they wanted like $8 a knob for our oven. It's not a new oven. It came with the place we moved into. So we're like, we'll just use our thumbs and turn them. But then I was like, people are gonna come over our house and wonder why we don't have oven knobs. Like, this is not a active kitchen look. So I went downstairs and I took the one knob we had left and I SolidWorksed it up, and I printed a couple on my Formlabs printer and popped them on. And then she stopped and she looked at me in like this utter like flabbergastedness. Like, did you just replicate our oven knobs? And I'm like, yeah. I took it downstairs and I took some calipers to it, and we have oven knobs again. And even for her, who like was in the house with me and knew about what I did,
yeah, it was tangible at that time.
I watched the spark in her face. She's like, can you do this for other things? Can you just, and so I end up spending a lot of time at Micro Center, you know, during quarantine, because I always need stuff, and they have amazing social distancing practices. Like, I've never felt unsafe being in a Micro Center.
That's awesome.
I'm in there all the time, and I get people like, they're like, huh, I should buy this 3D printer. And I'm like, what do you want to do with it? So like, let's go back to the intention. Like, I'll show them like stuff that I do. Like, are you gonna print masks? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, here are these options for you. And then like, the staff love me because they just stand there, and at the end they put a little sticker on your package. And I'm like, I should probably get a part-time job. Like, yeah. I love talking to the people about,
or get commission just for walking in. Basically, that'd be the best thing, right?
Let's talk about what it exactly is you want to print. And you'll get like dads coming in wanting to buy stuff for their kids, and like, for them it's like a family thing. So I'm like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? Oh, we're gonna print X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, are you gonna like sand it, paint it, stuff like that? Yeah, gray. Just buy gray. Black, white, or gray. You sure I don't need the rainbow colored one? No. Well, I'll get into the chemical composition of how they do that color shift and why you get bad layer adhesion later. For now, black, white, gray. Because you're gonna sand it and paint it. Like, why are you buying glow in the dark if it's never gonna glow in the dark? And the guys are just like, oh, I never thought of that. Cool. So like,
design intent, there it is in the tangible form there. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So
like, the older I get, I realize it takes so many holds in like every area of your life. It's just intentionality in the things you do, which you know, it doesn't sound that in depth, but like something like, I've been married for 6 years, and I often have this thing of, there's the thing that I want to do, and then there's the intention behind the thing that I want to do. And those translate to real feelings in my wife and myself, and that translates to how the kids see us interact. And so it's like little things. It's like being that next step of thoughtfulness. So it's like,
intention.
I am not an early riser. I wake up late routinely. 2 alarms, 3 alarms, 12 hours of sleep, 17 hours of sleep. Getting out of the bed is not my strong suit. Me and my wife know that. I'm trying to work on it. I'm good at staying up. I can stay up for days. I can't get up with 2 full nights of rest somehow. But like, explain to the kids, like, guys, mommy's not upset that I overslept. She's upset that it feels like she can't do other things because she has to worry about me being asleep and you needing my help. So, and the kids are just like, mommy's upset. You overslept. I'm like, no, you guys are in distance learning school right now. I have to get up to help you with that, because if I don't and something goes wrong, it's easy for you guys to miss your online class. So she's not upset that I oversleep, because I oversleep on the weekends, but she's upset that she feels like she can't be doing something else in this time. And like, just being intentional. So it's like, okay,
Yep.
my wife doesn't think I don't love her because I oversleep. She thinks I don't love her because she doesn't feel supported. So I have to be intentional about getting up every day. And even if I don't feel like it, I have to be intentional about doing it regularly.
Yeah, there's a reason you're there, to support the kids and to help the family there. So there's your intent right there, right? That's good stuff.
But it's macro, it's micro. It's like just being intentional. So like I get requests for designs all the time, and then, but it's that conversation again. It's like, what do you want to do with this design that I'm going to make for you? The more you can tell me, the better. Like some people are like, hey, I want a 3D printed thing. On my desk, I have these little, this is an adapter from China, and it just holds a solid, taped in there right now, sadly, of a solid state computer hard drive. So I have a 256 gig USB stick. It's currently unshielded, and it's just sitting on my desk. So people are like, I just want to make a cover for my USB stick. And I'm like, well, what kind of machine are you going to use? What kind of handling is it going to get? You're going to leave it sticking out of the computer at all times? Because we might need to use a harder material. We might have to design it so that the only point of support isn't just this USB, because I've bought products like those USB hubs, and I'm like, oh, I was working off a MacBook, leaving it sticking out of my MacBook. Kid plops down on the couch next to me. Well, there goes a $30 aluminum MacBook hub. I do toys, so I was like, hey, I need to know how you're going to manufacture this toy. Like, what's the final manufacturing? Like, if you could tell me what kind of machine material they're going to use, that works the better, because then I can understand, the tolerances, the way the material is going to, fit.
Right.
Anybody can design like a well-crafted 3D model, but then when you want to take that to the next step, and I learned all that the hard way.
Yeah, no, that's true stuff. I mean, the next step, obviously, when you're getting into what you've been doing in the medical industry, there is huge intent on what needs to happen for their standards or processes, and what would qualify as a nice print or a patient-specific print. There's so many things that the medical field has that you have to kind of follow, but it's also in development. So talk about that, because I know you've been with it's Longeviti, right? Neuro Solutions over there. And how long have you been there? For almost 4 years, is it? And you've been working for design for additive manufacturing on that side?
Yeah, I came in shortly after they started up. They had acquired a 3D printing company, so they had some starter machines, and they had one guy that could operate them, but they were building their team out, so they wanted a little bit more expertise and things like that. So I came in. It was the first real time. I had done SLA before, but it was the first time I had seen a PolyJet machine.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to tell them that, but because I'm like, hey, look, you put the STL in, you figure out the tolerances, you're good. So there was a lot of early play, and I spent a lot of long nights in the office without them knowing, trying to study and like learn the ins and outs of some of the machines they got. Because I got invested in Form Labs very early. One of my college roommates, he went to work there, and he's like,
Nice.
the lead engineers, like they just pushed out the fuse. I'm ridiculously proud of him, because I'm just like, when he came home with that idea, I didn't think it was going to be real, but here he is. And so I had seen like the desktop SLA versions, but up until that point, I had never seen the industrial counterparts that they were working down from. And this is the first time I'm like, oh, Stratasys, I know that name. And then I see this car size Connex, and I'm like, this is a big printer. Like, this seems like it has a lot of maintenance and moving parts. I should figure out how to use this, mostly so I don't kill myself.
Yeah, it's the important things, right? No, but that's what you're looking at too when you go from designing like the prototype side to getting into more of the production materials and things that work out that are being used straight from a print. Design the print and then being out there in the world. It's a different process, but it's a lot of the same. It's just that there's a different place. It's going to be a different intent for the end of the design. So that's interesting. I know there's a lot of different things happening inside of medical. So what exactly are you doing there for them?
So I moved, when I first came on, it was kind of all hands on deck. We were getting started. We were getting these like FDA submissions. We were getting like our 510Ks. For our product. It's a cranial implant, and
Gotcha.
And I've stuck around because it's so interesting that every new thing is a milestone. Like some of some of the things that I talk about with like, my friends and my family, it's like the appreciation for some of the small things we lose and just like just living. Like I love architecture because I like to go outside and see buildings that were made hundreds of years before cranes that
Right.
touch the sky. And I'm like, you guys, it doesn't boggle your mind that people put together made these things. And like it's like that at work now. So it's like it could be something as trivial as like we submitted some documents to the FDA. It's like, guys, we got the submission out. It was good. And like every day was like that. Every new thing every day was a new milestone for us. So when we got the first 510K, like all you could do is celebrate and then figure out how can we continue building on this. So when I came on, I worked in design and manufacturing of our first product offering, which was their clear cranial implants. There's a lot of different medical applications for them, between visibility, post-op. Now they're finding that the way that we make it, they're sonoluscent, so they receive sound more efficiently than some other products. So doctors are using them to ultrasound through. And so as opposed to getting CTs, which are so much radiation, you can now bedside use the little handheld ultrasounds, and they're getting clear visibility of some of the things like ventricles. And
Really cool. Yeah.
Again, it's like those little milestones. Like in my head, I never thought that they wouldn't be, you couldn't ultrasound to them, but just the confirmation that you can and people are using it to help other people. It's like,
it's a game changer. Yeah. And that's what it's all about out there, especially in the medical industry, is, improving lives and making people go through. And like you're saying, they don't have to go through a hard radiation to get this process done because of this new process. That's what it's all about.
I will say the interesting part is, most of the other things that I do, I come from like this hugely open collaboration background where it's like, who could we call to do what? And it has been interesting in the medical field seeing what, other companies like everyone thinks their ideas go, so they keep everything closed.
Sure.
So I do see where we're going to move more into academics and businesses and like a lot of cross collaboration. I think that's where we're going to get like the crazy medical innovations. I look forward to that. We'll get there. And it's the same for additive. I've yet to meet anybody in the additive field where I'm like, I have a question, and they're just like, I can't answer that.
Yeah,
Right?
that's important. I think even in the last year, we've seen more of that, and I hope that trend continues to go. Just because of the pandemic, there's been a lot more conversations, a lot more open conversations, because people are reaching out from their homes. They can't be face to face, but there's a lot of conversations that are happening that hadn't been happening before. And the medical industry is a big part of that. All the industries are ramping up right now what they can do, and a lot of it is opening up the communication, working with other people, working with other companies, having great partners and people you can rely on, people you can call and count on for some good advice on making things better, working together on even file formats and how to make that more universal across the board. These are things that have slowed down the industry. And now hopefully this open conversation continues, because you're right. It's a big part of things moving forward. So collaboration is huge out there, and I'm glad to see more of it. I just want to see that continue as we move forward here going into 2021. It's a interesting time we're going through right now.
Like, I've had a few phone calls this week actually where we were talking about just like kind of the state of the industry, and then like what I'm trying to do with my own personal business that's not my day job. And I was just like, man, like building. Like, when people ask me like, "What's your plans for Baltimore?" It's like building, like just building. And like they look at me like this, is like the most fanatical thing ever. And I'm like, guys, I thankfully have gotten to travel to a few conferences like before this and everything. It's like I've been to Boston where they have a design and innovation hub off their pier where people and companies are gathering up, and what I enjoy the most about additive is it's twofold. It goes from like the hobbyist side where, I talk all the time, like I miss the days of like 40 Prusa minis in someone's basement. Like, because once you hit like service bureau level, you're like, oh, okay, you got you have some fun machines, but like you miss, like what I think is missing is that rough exploration when you get started and you get your first printer, and then you're like, well, I want to print more things. So you get 3 more printers, and like, you're missing that hard in the that hard in the sweat, like acquisition of like knowledge for the thing. Because like, at the lower, you're like, I know what I'm talking about. I know about. And I'm just like, man, you can still give me like 40 Formlabs printers in a room. I'm gonna have the same enthusiasm I had when I had like 2 Lulzbot printers in my basement.
Yeah. No, I think that's an important point because, obviously people look at the final product a lot of times and don't realize what's gone in to get there. And then also, on the additive side, you're looking at it more the production world, and people just want it kind of a turnkey, locked in, ready to go. We know what we're building. We know what the machine we use. We know what material we need. We're going to produce these parts, and we're going to do it, at this speed, and that's going to be that. Before all that, we were talking about intent, design intent, and that's where that creativity comes in. But in the engineering realm, a lot of that creativity has got to be wrapped around standards, regulations, and things like that. So, you can lose a bit of that, like you're saying, the early design iterations, that artistic intent of, let me see what happens when I do this. And hey, I didn't know it was going to turn out this way. That's actually better, and then you could actually look at some of the softwares out there for analyzation to take a look at what's going to happen, with any kind of load bearing or fluid that's going through something, so you could simulate and test things. And all that is in that design phase, right? And a lot of times when you're in that final turnkey, I bought the machine, I'm making a part now because I have that final additive phase that I'm in. You don't realize all that design intent, all of that background that went into developing it so it can be a turnkey solution, and it's a huge part of it. The designers, the artists out there, and that way of kind of coming up with new ways of doing things that are better, that are improved. There's everything from lightweighting, to patient specific, results in any kind of 3D print that you could have internally, externally, tooling that goes in on the polymer side to help doctors make, any kind of surgery a lot quicker and safer and accurate. There's so many amazing things that are happening, but it seems like it's just at the turning point. It's
Oh,
the, yeah, the machines are getting bigger, faster, stronger, more materials, more knowledge out there, education, training, the next generation coming up with having those printers in their classrooms from day one. It's all kind of reaching that tipping point. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be like going forward.
yeah. And I guess the biggest benefit of like additive being its own like growing and booming industry, it's that it transcends all of the buckets we put ourselves into.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, you work in the medical, like you have your bucket of people that work in the medical field, and they might not necessarily be talking to each other. And then you have your people in the automotive, airplanes, and all these people work in their little buckets, and then they're keeping their industry secrets close to them sometimes, if not. But you introduced the common denominator that all these people also now want to ride the additive wave. They want to get in, they want to figure out, okay, you told somebody you can increase their bottom line with a 3D printer, and they want to figure that out. And they're leaving it up to like guys like us, like the designers, the 3D printers, to like make their vision work. And they don't usually care. So it's like, okay, well, it's like as long as the thing works. And what I'm finding is you get just maybe not the sharing of the technical ideas, but the sharing of the experiences. And there's no shortage for a number of times where it's like, guys, I'm trying to figure out how to do a crazy thing. And like, I can't tell you too much about what it is, but I just know I need to print something in these materials with these characteristics. And even though they can't help me with like, say, the IP of the design or anything like that, they have experiences from machines, or like they know someone who does something very similar, and so you're not necessarily collaborating information anymore. Now you're collaborating like peer-to-peer experience, all in like 3D printing field. And it's like, you never know when someone that builds rocket parts with a printer at GM, I don't know if GM builds rocket parts, but I'm using an example.
Sure. GE, whatever. Yeah.
Never know when that guy's going to call me and it's like, hey, you do kind of stuff in like medical, and I need an elastic resin, or I need to print something with certain shore hardness or durometer. You know anything about that? And I'm like, and it's like, you go to bed that night and you're like, I've never worked on a rocket in my life, but like I was able to help this guy figure out his problem, and that rocket might be a SpaceX rocket, or I don't know.
Sure. No, no, I think that, and that goes back to that open collaboration, right? People asking questions, reaching out. I think it's very important. You know, especially I like to talk to, the people coming into the industry out there in school and looking to having their career start. I think a large part of it, and we're seeing that more and more, especially over the last 9 months or so, is just reaching out, networking, talking to people, asking the questions. Feel free to do that anytime. And I'm so, I feel very privileged to be having those conversations. I talk to a lot of people offline, and it's all these little things, consulting on small projects to large projects, to medical, to aerospace, to fashion, to toys. There's so many different things that people are developing, or they have questions about where they could take it next or how to scale. And yeah, it's all about reaching out, asking the questions, because you talked about it, being in a silo, doing your same thing every day. A lot of times you don't realize how you can improve because you're not seeing what someone else is doing to improve that process. They've been through it before, and then give you a little tip or whatever that, or just say hello and make you feel better that you're talking to another human being that's working on something, whatever that is. It's important. Reach out and definitely, grow your network and find out new things by asking questions. I can't reiterate that enough. That's the largest part of that, is to open the mouth and ask the question.
No such thing as a dumb question. Like,
No, you could even feel a little embarrassed when you ask the question. That's fine, but
a lot of enthusiasm, they don't notice. They're like, it could be anything. Just actual little enthusiasm. It
yeah,
makes your nerves. It makes the other person feel like you're interested in what they have to say. Like, it could be anything. It's like, hey, do you have a really good panini recipe? Like, I've gotten into paninis recently. I got a hobby.
hey,
I don't want to
yeah.
make paninis. And they're looking at you like, I'm an auto mechanic. Do you really want? Let's go look up some panini recipes together. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, you find common hobbies, and I've done that with a lot of people I spoke with, different things going on in their life. I know I spoke a while back to a gentleman from X1, just talking about, what was going on in his life. And he was saying that he was getting into sewing. It's Dan Brunner over there at X1, but he was talking about, a hobby of sewing right out of nowhere. Who's doing that? But my daughter's, she's been into it for the last 3 years heavily. She just started doing it herself out of nowhere. And so I just purchased her a sewing machine over Christmas, and he reached back out to me and says, "Hey man, how did she like that gift?" So, it's stuff like that. I'm talking about different things that aren't totally in the 3D printing realm, but at the same time, they're a large part of people's passions and hobbies and things that keep you safe. Mental health is a big issue right now. And so aside from all your 3D printing hobbies, now you talked a little bit about things, but what are you doing to keep yourself happy and healthy during these challenging times?
Happy.
That's a tough word, right?
A hard
Yeah.
one. Uh,
Yeah.
I like the first month I joked that I was gaining the COVID-19, but no, it turned out to be like the COVID-100. Like, it got, but I don't. I couldn't, like, at first I got worried because I couldn't tell if it was like I was gaining weight because of age or because of quarantine.
Yeah.
So like I started working out again, but now I'm heavier. But I'm still like I'm 6'2", I'm a very slim guy. So I'm trying to figure out where 220 pounds is at. I'm like, so I increased my gym regimen. I started like running and working out more.
Yeah.
I realized like, okay, this rest might be my adult weight. I'll be 30 this year.
Nice.
Getting my adult weight. Here we go,
So
guys.
220. Yeah, that's that to me is my happy weight, and I'm the same height as you, and I'm over a little bit over 230 right now. It's like I got to get back 220 or below. I feel good about it, but it's a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of walking and a lot of different things to stay healthy. But yeah, it's hard to pull it down when we're all stuck in the house so much. There's only so much you could do to stay away from the refrigerator. Oh, geez.
Clothes, and then what was it? Home gym equipment like sold out immediately. So
Yep.
the video games are my thing. I worked in games for a while.
Nice.
And I think for the last 6 years, I think my main game has been Destiny.
Nice.
Over at Bungie, and it's kept me sane. It's kept me sane through quarantine. It's like I have my core group of friends. Like we all followed Bungie over from the Halo days, and we all
Nice. Yeah.
started Destiny on day one. And it's just like it's been a 6 year ride, and we all, like, a lot of us have, like, we all have kids and families now, so you can usually hear like the kids and the wives yelling in the background. Oh my God, you're on the game again! And we're like, yeah.
Did you
Maybe
get that? You got that PS5 you were looking for, right? Or did no, not yet.
I still just have my 4 mounted to the wall here.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Well, the four are still awesome. You know, the PS5 will happen someday. It's a jump for. I still have the PS2 out. My daughter is 11 and she likes playing the PS2. I'm like, okay, as long as I don't have to buy one of those PS5s right now, we're just fine.
Definitely have my 3 stuck like tucked behind the TV, so when the kids want to like play something, I can like just stick it on one of my computer monitors. And
Yeah.
at one point in my life, I wanted to have the world's largest video game collection. So
Uh-oh.
yeah, it hasn't worked out yet. I'll let you know when.
Yeah, yeah.
I would do is like every tax season, I go on eBay or something, and I'd look up like PS3 game lot, and I'd buy. Like, usually, this guy's selling like 100 PS3 games, couple duplicate discs, and I just buy the lot for like $120, $130, and so I have like this huge collection of PS3 games I've never played.
Yeah, yeah, that's I did the same thing even with the PS2. I brought that back out. That thing was in storage for a long time, obviously, and she was asking about video games. I said, I have an old one in the garage there somewhere I could pull out for you. But that's exactly what I did. I went out and I bought a whole bunch of games for it just because I figured, what the heck, we have fun with it.
Oh.
But yeah, it's good. It's good to keep your mind spinning and doing the things that keep you happy, you know, and the games are part of it. You know, that's part of it. You know, that's another 3D world there that's grown over the years. So it's really cool to see how things are becoming more of a reality. Every time I look at it, you think it can't get any more real looking, and then the next version is that much more real looking. So it's amazing.
When it
Yeah.
comes to like marriage, the chief problem I run into is like the thing that. So my wife has a list, and she's like, "You need 3 hobbies: one that keeps you fit, one that keeps you happy, and one that makes you money."
Mm-hmm.
And so, fitness aside, like I've been designing stuff for my entire life. I've been designing for like all kinds of different things over the last 12 years. So it's like it's always kept me happy. It's always made me money.
Mm.
I get up from my desk on occasion. Uh, but I've had to develop hobbies that aren't designed because I need that separation of not not always looking like I'm working. It's
Sure.
like you're always working. And I was like, well, no, earlier I was working, but now I'm just making a little thing. I'm going to print it later. And she's like, so you're working? No, 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 no. Hear me out here. Hear me out. I'm not working. I'm just designing a thing. So you're working. No, no one's paying me to do this thing.
Yeah, there's a difference. I'm not getting paid. I just love what I'm doing right now, right? That's it.
So it's like if I don't have other hobbies that don't make it look so like video games, no one can mistake me working for playing video games.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So she comes down and she's like, "Oh, you're playing a game with your friends?" Yes, yes, yes. See,
You got it. You nailed that one. I'm playing games with my friends.
next to me, like, gotten into drone flying. That was my latest one.
Nice. Yeah, that I'm right at the I'm looking around. We could talk about that a little bit offline too, because I'd like to get some tips on that. I've been looking around for a drone for a little while right now, trying to stay under the GE range, you know, but there's some nice ones in there that I've seen. But yeah, I know that there's a lot of great hobbies. Going into, we've had some wonderful conversations. It's been great talking to you, Wilbert. Now, I'm curious about 2021. We talked about that a little bit when we were getting started. You know, what's your forecast for things? How do you see, especially in the 3D printing and additive manufacturing realm, playing over the next year or so?
That is a very interesting one. We've had some moves that we kind of like anticipate. So like the acquisition of Origin. Like I think we all like
Yeah.
it's in the back of our heads, but it was also in the back of our heads. It's like that's a possible, and then when it comes to fruition, you're like, oh, so like I'm thinking like, who else is going to acquire somebody? Like, what other acquisitions are there to be made?
Mm.
I'm always looking at 3D systems to see what they're doing. So I'm like, you know, they were one of the first big ones, and I'm like, so I always look to them like, what kind of moves are you guys making? What are you focusing on?
Yeah.
I'm writing it out here in the medical field. I'm gonna stick around to that until the wheels fall off, or until my original core team that I came in with goes to do other things. It's great to be able to go to work and both feel at home, but then also like satisfied. It's like I often find more times when I get frustrated, I go to work. Like, oh no, the kids broke half of the dishes on the dish rack. I'm going to work.
I'm gonna ignore that with work. Yeah.
Everything just melts off. Like it's a new set of maybe that's it. It's just a new set of problems. So like your house is on fire and you get to work and work's on fire, but now you're like, oh, work's on fire, and then they need you. So I absolutely love my team there. I'm gonna stick that out. I incorporated. It was a sole proprietorship for so long that I finally got my own business formed in Maryland.
Nice.
So looking to see whatever projects may take me this year. I've already had guys call interested in architecture kind of stuff. Mix. It goes back to like the scanning and the photogrammetry though. So a lot of the stuff so far is they're trying to digitize spaces in order to like build home renovations on the computer. And it was something I wanted to get into. So we're gonna jump full speed into that, see what happens. I have the drone now, so I'm gonna see like, hey, who needs me to photogrammetry a field? I don't know, construction site or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. No, I mean, those are exciting things. I know that's part of my own hobby suitcase of stuff to do, man. There's a lot going on in this year. It'll be fun trying to figure out, where the year is headed. Obviously, earlier this year being early in the year, everyone's still letting all the political games kind of feather out into the world, and hopefully we could all find a bit of unity here and move forward with things. But here we are, 2021. Here we go. But hey, it's been awesome talking to you. Anything I did want to ask too, is there anywhere that people can get a hold of you if they're looking into doing some design work?
Oh yeah, I am hugely narcissistic. So if you just go to wilbertpierce.design, that's a company's website. I'm still building it. So if you find a page that doesn't work, let me know and I'll hop on and fix that.
Cool.
And then I think I have done and probably at some point I maybe want to specialize the business, but I'll just continue rolling out with the same kinds of projects that I've been taking. So VR, AR, games, collectibles, and then anything to the sun. I never shy away from a ridiculous design challenge.
Yeah, well, anybody that needs that design help, reach out to Wilbert. I'll go ahead and put a description to that in our conversation here. But hey, Wilbert, it's been awesome talking to you, and look forward to checking back in as the year goes on, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.